Hi everyone and welcome, this is the Apostate Prophet. These days, Muslims celebrate one of their most important events in an Islamic year, the Sacrifice Feast. I published a video extensively explaining the Sacrifice Feast before, and you can find that in the description. I would rather want to talk about the practice of sacrifice and its absurdity, and the lack of sense in Islam upholding this practice. When I was younger, I occasionally wondered why we are doing this. Why are Muslims killing animals and calling that sacrifice? Are we giving something to Allah? Sacrifice normally stands for giving something up, or dedicating something to Allah in this case. Briefly explained, Muslims are expected to choose an animal for the sacrifice. Take that animal, lay it down, and place a knife on its neck. Invoke the name of Allah. Cut its arteries, tubes, and pipes, excluding the nervous system, while the animal is fully awake, and wait for the blood to stop pouring. This animal has now been officially sacrificed to Allah. The meat taken from that animal is split in 3 parts. One part goes to the one who commits the sacrifice, the second part goes to relatives, and the third part goes to the poor. Isn't it incredible to imagine the sight of a goat, which is a pretty intelligent animal by the way, just lay there and die in agony while you invoke the name of Allah, because this animal is now losing its blood and life as a sacrifice to that Allah, and later it will be eaten, whatever. I know, the biblical and Quranic story is that Abraham sacrificed a lamb because he was ready to even kill his own child upon God's test. So God gave him a lamb instead and said, "This is for you, kill this instead." But that's why Muslims are now supposed to imitate Abraham and kill animals? Something that they already kill all the time because they want to eat meat. Something that doesn't even take anything away from Muslims, just enriches them in nutrition. Since this entire concept sounds very primitive, Muslim apologists say we don't really sacrifice to Allah. It is just a ritual to remember how Abraham was ready to sacrifice his son to God. It is a remembrance of faith and piety, and morals, and goodness, and the mercy bestowed upon us by Allah. We remember how faithful Abraham was, and that is why we kill animals and call it sacrifice. It is interesting to dig a little bit into the term sacrifice and the background and history of this practice. I would like to start with pagan Arabia, right before Islam. According to Islamic sources and all other sources, animal sacrifice was very common in Arabia before Islam. According to a hadith, a companion of Muhammad once brought his child to Muhammad. "Then I brought the child to Allah's apostle and placed it on his lap. He asked for a date, chewed it, and put his saliva in the mouth of a child. So the first thing to enter its stomach was the saliva of Allah's apostle." Oh, wrong hadith. Sorry. Forget this one if you can. Okay, this one is the right hadith. When a boy was born to one of us in the pre-Islamic period, we would sacrifice a sheep and smear his head with its blood. And when Allah brought Islam, we sacrificed a sheep, shaved his head, and smeared his head with saffron. It is interesting that Islam adopts a sacrifice practice as is from pre-Islamic pagans and just changes a few details. The reason the pre-Islamic pagan Arabs would smear a boy's head with the animal's blood is that the animal's blood was holy and dedicated to their gods. Pre-Islamic pagans would also pour the blood of the animal on an altar as a dedication to their gods. Presumably, they used to pour blood on an altar inside the Kaaba, since this was a house dedicated to Hubal, an Arabian god, just like other Arab tribes would sacrifice animals to their gods all over Arabia. The practice of sacrificing animals can be seen in so many cultures. In fact, it is considered the most common form of sacrifice in human history. In ancient Greece, Rome, Mesopotamia, ancient Egypt, Persia, among the Hebrew people, Nordic people, and Celtic people in Europe, in East Asia, Africa, and so on. And of course the Muslims. In many cultures, the animal was burned after the slaughter, and no eating took place. This was done because people thought, if we kill animals for ourselves, we should also kill one for the gods. The gods will like that. In ancient Greece, for example, people would kill an animal, pour its blood on the altar, burn its inedible parts, and distribute the rest of the edible meat to the people. Human sacrifice was also quite common in different cultures, although it was much less common than animal sacrifice. And anywhere, in any culture, no matter what form of sacrifice is done, the purpose of the sacrifice was the same: please the gods, or the ancestors, or the spirits. Now it seems like in biblical tradition, when we come back to Abraham, Abraham's story occurs at a time where human sacrifice is quite common in neighboring cultures. And when the story goes that Abraham is ready to sacrifice his son to God, this looks like an idea that is not very crazy at that time. It is just hard for him to do, because it is his only child from his wife Sarah that God gave him. In fact, the Bible and historical sources clearly tell us that child sacrifice existed in cultures surrounding the Hebrew people. The Bible mentions how they sacrificed their children to their gods, and how that practice was evil and should be forbidden. Instead, God in the Bible tells Abraham to kill a lamb and no more humans. Many Jewish scholars, including Maimonides, therefore concluded that the killing of the lamb marks a transition from a barbaric practice to a less barbaric practice, which is the sacrificing of an animal, as a step closer to prayer, which is the ideal type of worship. It is generally understood that among pagan cultures, sacrifice, giving something to the gods, was the common way of communicating with gods. Abrahamic religions brought prayer instead and said, do this. But let's come back to Islam. Islam adopts sacrifice again, just changes its meaning, but makes it a major practice again, a major day, part of the pilgrimage which every Muslim must have done once in their lifetime, which is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Islam also requires practices for the sacrifice that look pretty pre-Islamic pagan to me. But I will come to that very soon. So, to summarize, we have many ancient cultures, and all of them sacrifice humans and animals in order to share with gods, dedicate to gods, give something up, communicate with gods, show gods that you care about them, which is why you kill animals or humans for them. So they are pleased with you and send rain, victory, blessing, health, happiness. Abrahamic religion comes and says, stop killing humans, kill animals instead. But most importantly, pray. An Arab culture in Arabia is unaffected by that and still continues animal sacrifice to their gods for blessing, just like many other cultures around the world at the time, while being dressed in certain ways. And now Islam comes, takes those practices, including the sacrifice, mysteriously makes this a major form of worship again. And here we are in 2019, killing animals and watching them lose their lifeblood and waste away because Allah wants it. Allah wants more blood. Looking at history, doesn't it look like this practice is an extremely primitive practice that should have died with ancient cultures? Why would the Almighty Allah keep this practice up? Although the historical basis of this practice is obviously anything but what Muslims claim Islam is supposed to be. How does it make sense to kill animals? Just because a story in the Bible, adopted by the Quran, tells us that Abraham killed an animal instead of sacrificing his son. How does that make you more pious and remembering of Allah? Doesn't this lead to the same result, that Allah wants you to kill animals every year for His sake, just like all the other bad gods? But no, Islam distinguishes itself. Allah doesn't want the blood. The Quran therefore says, their meat will not reach Allah, nor will their blood, but what reaches Him is piety from you. Thus have we subjected them, animals, to you, that you may glorify Allah for that which He has guided you, and give good tidings to the doers of good. Allah wants you to kill animals for piety and goodness. Why? Well, why not? Also, this excuse is not excuse enough, because as shown in the hadith earlier, Muslims do not only sacrifice animals in order to remember Abraham's deeds, they also sacrifice animals when a child is born. According to Islamic reports, Muhammad said that when a boy is born, 2 sheep should be sacrificed, and when a girl is born, 1 sheep should be sacrificed. Totally leaving aside the fact that Islam typically makes a distinction between the value of a boy and a girl, or a man and a woman, because Islam comes from a man who had a dozen wives for his pleasure. You also clearly see here that Muslims sacrifice animals upon the birth of a child and dedicate it to Allah. Muslims say thank you to Allah or invoke a blessing by making a sacrifice for the birth of a child, by giving Allah a dead animal or its blood. This practice is also adopted from pagans who used to make a sacrifice to their gods when a child was born. So why does Islam contain an obviously pagan and primitive practice where humans thank their Arab god and pour the blood of an animal to thank him? Why would that be in any way good and useful? Why do you sacrifice animals? Why would anyone still want to do that with a clear mind? Well, have a good sacrifice feast. Maybe go and watch the animal die and the blood pour out for Allah's pleasure. And think about how 3000 BC that is, and how you are still doing that in 2019. Thanks for watching. I will be back very soon with more about the pilgrimage. For now, have a good day and stay away from Islam.
Today is called truly in Islam. Is it really Eid al-Fitr or it is the day of Adha? The Muslims, they celebrate al-Adha, which is supposed to be a different occasion for them, but the fact today is the day of the Adha, and we will prove it. You see, most of people, they copy paste from each other, but nobody want to investigate. In front of you, this is the website, official government website of the government of Dubai. I will take the website down so you guys can see with me that this is an official website of Dubai. What does that mean? That means this is a government website. This is not my website. All right. As you see here, department, etc., the affairs of transportation, etc., the city hall of Dubai. So what the city of Dubai announced to prepare themselves for such a day. What day? The day of a slaughter. If the Muslims, they break fasting, so why they slaughter hundreds of thousands of animals in this day? You know what I mean? If the Muslim want to say to me, we are slaughtering for the poor, well, the poor, they are hungry the whole year. If you are a good person, slaughtering in one day a lot of meat will not help the poor. That will make a lot of meat go expensive, and the poor will not be able to afford it. And you cannot feed every poor. So why today they slaughter? The fact what is behind this slaughter day is the roots of a pagan religion. And today we are going to show you what is the roots of Ramadan. If we go in the Quran, you see most of Muslims, they are ignorant. If you ask a Muslim, when you fast, he said to you, the Quran says in the month of Ramadan. Well, did the Quran even mention the word month? If you read with me here in the Hadith in Sahih al-Bukhari, it says the following: Ashura, i.e. the 10th of Muharram, was a day in which the tribe of Quraysh used to fast. Now the story in the Muslim books changed. It's not really about the Jews. Ashura is not for the Jews. Ashura is for the pagans, Arab, Quraysh, and all of us, we know Muhammad, he have a war with them. Why? Because they are pagan. Now why Muhammad is fasting Ashura, the fasting of pagan? I challenge any Muslim to tell me. This is number one. Number two, if Muhammad, he took the fasting of Ashura from the Jews, I challenge any Muslim to show me any fasting in the Jewish books. It's called the fasting of Ashura. They don't have such a thing.
Uza niga metha bare tami mingale atwat akika siat takaw louဖို့အဲ့ဒါဘယ်လိုနည်းရက်နဲ့လုပ်ရမလဲပြီးတော့akikaနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးရှရီအတ်ကဘယ်လိုလမ်းညွှန်ထားလဲသိချင်လို့ပါဆရာပြီးတော့အဲ့ဒါလုံးမဲ့နေ့ဖခင်ကနဖီလရိုဇာထားလို့ရောရလားဆရာ
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim အဲ့တော့akikaနဲ့ပတ်သက်ပြီးပြောရမယ်ဆိုရင်ခလေးတူမွေးဖွားလာတဲ့အခါမှာ9ရက်မြောက်နေ့မှာakikaလုပ်ခြင်းဟာမုစတဟဘ်ဖြစ်တယ်အဲ့တော့မွေးဖွားလာတဲ့ကလေးဟာယောက်ျားလေးဖြစ်မယ်ဆိုရင်အဲ့ဒီခါမှာသူ့စိတ်akikaလုပ်မယ်ဆိုရင်2ကောင်လုပ်ရမယ်အဲ့လိုပဲကျွဲနွားကလအုပ်စားတဲ့တရိษံအကြီးတွေမှာအပုံအနေနဲ့ထဲဝင်မယ်ဆိုရင်2ပုံလုပ်အောင်အကယ်၍မွေးဖွားလာတဲ့ကလေးကမိန်းကလေးဆိုရင်တော့သူ့စိတ်akikaလုပ်မယ်ဆိုရင်2ကောင်လုပ်ရမယ်အဲ့လိုပဲဟိုတရိษံကြီးတွေမှာဆိုရင်ကျွဲနွားကလအုပ်စားတဲ့တရိษံကြီးတွေမှာakikaဖြစ်နေထဲဝင်မယ်ဆိုရင်တပုံထဲဝင်ရမှာဖြစ်တယ်အကယ်၍တူတယောက်ကယောက်ျားလေးမွေးတယ်ယောက်ျားလေးမွေးလာလို့သူ့အနေနဲ့akikaလုပ်ဖို့အတွက်စိတ်2ကောင်မတက်ဆွမ်းနိုင်ဘူးကျွဲနွားမှာ2ပုံထဲဖို့အင်အားမရှိဘူးဆိုရင်အဲ့ဒီလူအနေနဲ့တပုံပဲထဲမယ်ဆိုရင်လည်းပြဿနာမရှိဘူးakikaရဲ့ဆဝါကိုရအဲ့လိုပဲတူတယောက်ကသူakikaလုပ်ဖို့အင်အားကိုမရှိဘူးအရှင်းအင်အားကိုမရှိဘူးအဲ့လောက်သူဆင်းရဲတယ်အကျက်တဲတယ်akikaလုပ်နိုင်တဲ့အင်အားမရှိဘူးဆိုရင်အဲ့လိုအခြေအနေမျိုးမှာakika မလုပ်ခြင်းဟာလည်းဘာမှပြဿနာမရှိဘူးအာကီကာလုပ်ခြင်းဟာဝါဂျစ်မဟုတ်ဒါကမုစတဟပ်အမလ်တစ်ခုပဲဖြစ်တယ်အဲ့လိုပဲအာကီကာလုပ်တဲ့အခါမှာ9ရက်မြောက်နေ့မှာအာကီကာလုပ်ခြင်းအတာမုစတဟပ်ဖြစ်တယ်အကယ်၍9ရက်မြောက်နေ့မှာလုပ်ဖို့အဆင်မပြေဘူးဒီကလေးမွေးပြီးတော့9ရက်မြောက်နေ့မှာလုပ်ဖို့အဆင်မပြေဘူးကမာဆိုရင်9ရက်မြောက်နေ့ဆိုတာဒီနေ့တောက်ကြနေ့မှာကလေးမွေးတယ်ဆိုရင်နောက်လာမဲ့ဂျာတာပရင်းနေ့ကဒါ9ရက်မြောက်နေ့ဖြစ်အဲ့ဒီဂျာတာပရင်းနေ့မှာလုပ်ဖို့အဆင်မပြေဘူးဆိုရင်နောက်တစ်ပတ်9ရက်မြောက်နေ့ကိုရွှေ့ပြီးတော့14ရက်နေ့မှာလုပ်ချင်တယ်ဆိုရင်လည်းလုပ်လို့ရတယ်14ရက်နေ့မှာလုပ်ဖို့အဆင်မပြေဘူးဆိုရင်21ရက်ကိုရွှေ့ပြီးတော့အဲ့ဒီ21ရက်မြောက်နေ့မှာလည်းအာကီကာလုပ်ချင်တယ်ဆိုရင်လုပ်လို့ရတယ်အကယ်၍အဲ့ဒီ21ရက်မြောက်နေ့မှာလည်းမလုပ်နိုင်ဘူးဆိုရင်နောက်ပိုင်းဘရောမဆိုလုပ်မယ်ဆိုရင်ဒီလီဟာစ်ကိုထောက်ထားပြီးတော့ဒီ9ရက်ကိုထောက်ထားပြီးတော့ဂျာတာပရင်းနေ့မှာလုပ်ချင်ဟာဒါမုံမြတ်တယ်ဒါပေမဲ့အဲ့ဒီနောက်ပိုင်းမှာလုပ်တဲ့အာကီကာအနေနဲ့တော့မုစတဟပ်အမလ်ကတော့အထားမြောက်သွားမယ်ဖဇီလတ်ကိုရရှိသွားမယ်အချိန်အနေနဲ့ဆွန်နတ်အဒါဖြစ်မှာမဟုတ်တော့အဲ့လိုပဲအာကီကာလုပ်တဲ့နေရာမှာတရိษံဘယ်လိုတရိษံကိုလုပ်လို့ရတယ်လဲဆိုတော့ကိုရဘာနီရဲ့စီကံချက်ပဲအာကီကာရဲ့စီကံချက်ကိုရဘာနီမှာတရိษံဘယ်လိုစီကံချက်ရှိဖို့လိုအပ်တယ်လဲအာကီကာမှာလည်းအဲ့လိုစီကံချက်ရှိဖို့လိုအပ်တယ်ကလအုပ်မှာကိုရဘာနီလုပ်လို့ရတယ်နွားမှာကျွဲမှာကိုရဘာနီလုပ်လို့ရတယ်အဲ့လိုပဲတူးစိတ်ကိုရဘာနီလုပ်လို့ရတယ်ဒီအတိုင်းပဲအာကီကာမှာလည်းအဲ့ဒီတရိษံတွေအားလုံးကိုရဘာနီလုပ်ပါရင်ဘယ်တရိษံကိုကိုရဘာနီလုပ်လို့မပိုင်ဘူးအဲ့ဒီတရိษံကိုအာကီကာလည်းလုပ်လို့မပိုင်ဘူးအဲ့လိုပဲအာကီကာလုပ်တဲ့အခါမှာတားကောင်ကိုဇဘာမလုပ်ခင်မှာနီယတ်နဲ့တော့ဘယ်လိုနီယတ်ထားမလဲအလ္လာဟ်တာလာကျွန်တော်ကိုချီးမြှင့်လိုက်တဲ့ဘယ်တားသမီးအတွက်အလ္လာဟ်ကိုကျေးဇူးတင်တဲ့အနေနဲ့ကျွန်တော်ဒီအာကီကာလုပ်ပါတယ်ဒီတားကောင်ကိုဇဘာလုပ်ပါတယ်ဆိုပြီးတော့ ਨੇ အဲ့ဒီနီယတ်နဲ့တားကောင်ကိုဇဘာလုပ်အောင်